Share the screen. And we can begin. So we got a new design again today, and I've been trying completely black one. Let's see how it works. Anyway, welcome to the 16th lecture of my classical Greek introductory course. And today we're going to overview contracted word forms, and more specifically we are looking at the present tense verbs which have been contracted from ao, eo, and o. And we are also looking at verbs with contracted forms in the future tense. Included in today's lecture are also so-called verbal adjectives, which end in theos, thea, theon. And finally, we are also looking at another type of subordinate clauses, that is object clauses after verbs with the meaning of to prepare, to plan, or to tend to, so-called verba curandi. So contracted verbs are especially common in Attic Greek, and particularly in the present tense. In contracted verb forms, the final short vowel of the root of the verb, which is either an alpha, an epsilon, or an omicron, merges with the thematic vowel between the stem and the ending, or directly with the vowels in the ending, as in the examples we see here on the screen, where the contraction has taken place between the stem ending vowel and the omega of the first person singular ending. Thus, the first person singular present indicative active form, agapao, contracts to agapo, miseo contracts to miso, and plero contracts to plero. The endings are the same in contracted verb forms as in the non-contracted ones we have learned so far. And in dictionaries, the uncontracted form is usually the one which is given first, while the contracted variant may also be mentioned. It should be mentioned too that all of these verbal stems ending in a vowel have originally been formed through the disappearance of an original digamma, alternatively through the disappearance of a y sound or a sigma or something similar. But this is nothing we will delve deeper into now. Okay. The rules for contraction when it comes to the verbs that have been contracted from ao is that when the stem ending a sound meets an e sound, the result is a long a sound, while an a sound meeting an o sound results in a long o sound. And in case there are iotas involved in the contraction, the iota turns into a iota subscript. Thus, as has already been mentioned, in the present active indicative, agapao contracts to agapo, while the corresponding uncontracted second person singular form, agapaes, becomes agapas. And note here the iota subscript in the contracted form. And if you look at the active imperfect in turn, the uncontracted first person singular form, egapaon, becomes here egapon. So in this case, we have a contraction between the thematic vowel omicron falling between the stem and the ending and the stem ending alpha. Okay. Turning to the contraction of verbs ending in eo, here a short e sound, when it collides with another short e sound, will result in the diphthong a, while the merger of a short e sound and an o sound again results in the diphthong u. And in cases where the stem ending short e sound is followed by a long vowel, the result is that the e sound disappears or is overtaken by the long vowel. Accordingly, if we again begin by looking at the present indicative active miseo, it becomes miso, while miseis becomes miseis. And if we turn to the active imperfect, we can see that emiseon becomes emisoon, while emiseis becomes emiseis. So nothing strange here. Okay, finally, we have here the rules for contraction. For the verbs with stems ending in a short o sound, here it's the case that when the stem ending short o sound meets a short e sound or another short o sound or the diphthong u, the result is the diphthong u. Then again, if the short o sound meets a long e sound or a long o sound, the result is a long o sound. And if the short o sound meets a diphthong involving the letter iota, the result is the diphthong oi. Thus, in the present active indicative, plero becomes plero, and pleroeis becomes plerois, which of course may be quite easily mistaken for an optative form. And in the imperfect, epleron becomes eplerum. Right. That was it for contracted forms in the present tense. You find full paradigms of these on pages 129 and 130 in the Cambridge Grammar of Classical Greek. But the best way to get used to them is to read texts containing them. And indeed, the next chapter of our textbook has a considerable number of them. But let's now take a look at contracted verbs in the future tense. These are also called Attic futural forms, since they are a typical trait of the Attic Greek dialect. So far, we have been dealing with sigmatic futural forms, which are formed by placing a futural sigma infix between the stem and the ending of a verb. And this is indeed the most common way to form future forms in classical Greek. However, there are, of course, always exceptions, and contracted future forms count among these. The contracted future forms are inflected exactly like the present contracted verb forms we have just looked at. We see some examples of contracted futures on the screen. For instance, the future of elpizzo, I hope, is elpio. I will hope, and angelo, I report, is angello in the future tense. While the future of machomai, I fight, is machomai. And teino, I stretch, becomes teno in the future tense. In general, verbs with stems ending in a liquid, a lamba or a raw, or a nasal, a mu or a ny, consonant have contracted futural forms. But there are other examples as well. For instance, verbs ending in idso, like el pizzo, that we just looked at. And usually it's also mentioned in dictionaries if and when a verb has a contracted futural form. But that's all I'm going to say about contracted futures. These are also best gotten used to by reading texts in which they occur. Of course, it can often be difficult, especially in the beginning, to discern between contracted present and futures. Okay, the next topic of today is verbal adjectives. A verbal adjective is an adjective which has been derived from a verb stem, and they are inflected like normal adjectives with 3 endings. In the second declension, in the masculine and neuter, and in the first declension, in the feminine. The Greek verbal adjectives, like the Latin gerundive, has a passive meaning and is used to convey a sense of obligation. In English, they can often be best translated with a so-called passive to infinitive construction. So that's, for instance, the phrase lectei hai aitei can be translated as the causes are to be said, or the reasons are to be stated. Could also be a possible translation of this phrase. While toiauta lectea pros tapaidia could again be translated as such things are to be said to the kids. So as you can see, the verbal adjectives behave very much like normal adjectives in that they take the same case, number, and gender as the words they connect to. So in the first example, the verbal adjective lectea is a neuter nominative plural because it connects to the pronoun toiauta, such things, which is also in the neuter nominative plural. While the second example has the verbal adjective lectei, which is in the feminine nominative plural because it connects to the noun aitei, reasons or causes, which stands in the feminine nominative plural as well. Moreover, clauses containing verbal adjectives can also contain an agent, that is the expected performer of the action, in which case the agent is given in the dative case, like in the third example on the screen, tutto hemin prakteo. This is to be done by us, where the verbal adjective prakteon is in the neuter singular because of its connection to the neuter singular demonstrative pronoun tutto. And the first person plural personal pronoun hemin, us, which is also the agent, is then in the dative. Okay. Let's turn to the last topic of today then, which is some syntax. Previously, we have learned that subordinate object clauses that follow on a verb with the meaning of to say are usually introduced by the conjunction hoti, or sometimes hos, and usually followed by an indicative, like in the example we see here on the screen. Lego hoti nomidzeis theos. I say that you acknowledge gods, except if the predicate in the main clause is augmented, in which case there might be an oblique optative in the object clause. like in the example, hoi stratiotai elegon hotipisteuoien Leonida. The soldiers said that they trust Leonidas. However, when preceded by a so-called verba curandi, that is by verbs with the meaning of to prepare, to plan, or to tend to, object clauses are formed slightly differently. Examples of verba curandi in Greek are epimeleomai, I take care of, bouleuomai, I resolve on, and paraskeuatso, I prepare. Object clauses of this kind are most often introduced with the conjunction hopos, but sometimes also with hos or hina. And the verb in the subordinate object clause is then usually a future indicative or subjunctive. Except again, if the predicate in the main clause is in a historical tense, in which case the verb in the object clause may be an oblique optative. The example we have here of an object clause preceded by a verba curandi is paraskeuatsomai hopos hos kratista vahumai. I prepare myself to fight as strongly as possible. Here we can see that the subordinate clause, that is the object clause, is introduced with the conjunction hopos, and the verb in the object clause, mahumai, is in the future tense. More specifically, it's a contracted future form, a first person singular medial future indicative. Okay, that was all for today. Except for our reading, of course. Okay. Let's turn directly to that content chapter that you had done.
Just trying to get my video back on.
All right. No worries. But if you have the sound, that's already good. No, you're back.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Yes, I've got it up on my main computer as well as on my iPhone, because the iPhone's just too small to read.
Yeah. Well, you know, as long as it works for you somehow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, the first one is an oracular response by Pythia, so by the oracle, or
Yep.
the pronouncer of the oracle in Delphi. Did you have something there? Or?
Yes. So Chaerephon, being a companion of Socrates, went to Delphi, and then daring to consult the oracle. It Ptolemais, he was.
Yeah. So ekon is, of course, what kind of verb form is that?
It's a participle.
Yeah, exactly.
Participle. Yeah.
And this one you also translated as a bit like it would be a participle, but it's a finite verb form.
Yeah, So going to Delphi, he dared, or he was dare. He dared to, and then I've translated the Mantusis as to consult the oracle, because
exactly.
Yeah.
Manteomai can mean I think both give an oracular response or an oracle saying something, but it can also be mean to pose a question to an oracle. So I think it's definitely that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he asked basically, so he said he dared to consult the oracle if anyone was wiser than Socrates.
Exactly.
Or if there was any person wiser than Socrates.
Exactly. And this verb form here is eie. What's the mood here? Subjunctive or indicative or
subjunctive, I think.
Yeah, it's an optative form actually.
Optative, of course, yeah.
So this is again one of these oblique optatives that I've been talking about every now and then. That you can have in the subordinate clause, and in the main clause there's an augmented verb, so finite augmented verb, and that we have here in etolmesa, of course, this sigmatic aorist here of tolmao, dared, as you see correctly translated. But yeah, no problems there. Then what's the response of the oracle of Pythia?
So the Pythia said, well, Tidy. So yeah, the Pythia said thus, or spoke thus. Sophocles is wise. Well, I put in is.
Yeah.
Wise Sophocles, wiser Euripides, but Socrates is wisest of all men.
Yeah, exactly. So we had here we had a comparative form of sophos, wiser, and then we had a superlative.
Superlative, yeah, wisest.
Superlative form of the same adjective, sophos, sophotatos. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is an inscription in Pergamon. What do you have here?
Yeah, it took a while for this one. The people honored Cornelia.
Yeah.
And then daughter of Quintus Metellus Pius Scipio. Scipionus is, well, I presume, because it's a Greek. It's a Greek inscription that's about the Romans. It's about Cornelia, isn't it? So
yeah, yes.
So I've Romanized them. So Quintus Metellus Pius Scipio.
Yes, yes.
And so he's the imperator, the imperator, wife of Gnaeus Pompeius, and then son of Gnaeus. The Magnus, Pompeius Magnus Megalou.
Yeah, exactly. So Gnaeus the Great or something like this.
Yeah, yeah.
So this Gnaeus Pompeius is son of Gnaeus the Great, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then
and the proconsul.
Exactly, yeah. So the husband is apparently, as I interpret this, is the proconsul.
Proconsul, yeah. I wasn't quite sure if she was wife of Pompeius Magnus, who is son of Gnaeus, or whether she was the wife of Pompeius, of Gnaeus Pompeius, son of the Great. It's difficult because they all in genitive. I think
it could be both.
I think she was actually Pompeius Magnus's wife, because when he was in exile, after one of the battles, they went there from what I vaguely remember. But anyway, and
I'm not sure about that one either, but I think the Gnaeus Pompeius was the proconsul. You probably find it on Google though. If I haven't checked it, but yeah.
And so. And then dear ten peri auten. So on account of her moderation and goodwill towards the people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this one was a tricky one, mainly because the names were so long. But yeah, so basically the people dedicated or honored Cornelius, who was then the daughter of a person with a very long name and the wife of a person with a quite long name and a father. But they honored her because of her, however you would like to translate Sophros in there, but could be prudence, for instance, because of her prudence and her goodwill towards the people, as you said. So yeah, good. Okay, then we had a short story about
the lioness and the fox.
the lioness and the fox, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have something here?
Yeah, I found the structure of this quite interesting. So the onedixomene, I mean, I could get it as a participle, and it's a dative singular female participle. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Present
Yeah.
participle.
And
yeah.
What voice is it in then? If it's a present participle, as you said, is it active or passive, or what is it?
It's passive, isn't it?
It's passive, exactly. Yes.
Passive. It's a passive.
Media passive
Singular participle. So, yeah, but I couldn't work out why it was in the dative.
It's not in the dative, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
Because if it would be in the dative, it would have an iota subscript, but I don't see the iota subscript.
Okay, so
it's in a feminine form.
So it's just the feminine for the. Okay, so the lioness reproaching
the lioness.
Fox.
I would say reproach by, because it's
reproach. Okay, so she was reproached by the fox.
Exactly. So you have the agent here with hippo.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's how we also know how it's passive, that we have this agent with hippo.
Yeah,
and the genitive.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, I mean, I know what it means, but I can't work out how it says it. But it's basically how many children do they? Well, how many do they give birth to at one time? But I couldn't work out epito dia pantos to chrono. So
it's a bit tricky how you actually would translate it.
Yes, yeah.
Right. So on account or because of through all time or all the time.
Yeah.
Just
once. Yeah.
Just one give birth to, like. But because all the time the lioness only gave birth to one at a time, right?
Yes, that's right. And then, yeah, I mean, it's basically, you know, they were sort of saying, why do you only have one child when we have so many? But and then so she said one, but it's a lion.
Yeah, so not maybe the best story, but that was the answer anyway of the lioness. So we have here the lioness reproach by the fox. Epi, how you translate that this preposition here is questionable, but maybe on account of all the time just giving birth to once, said one but a lion. So that's like the answer of the dicto means to give birth. It's here in the infinitive, active infinitive, dictate, give birth. But this is a bit very tricky to translate in any way with in any literal.
Yes,
you have to make sense of it somehow.
Yeah.
But I can try to think of something in my translation tomorrow if I can think of some. I'm working.
Right.
Did you have time to this one as well? No. Yeah.
Yes, I looked at it. It's quite long.
This one was
yeah. So it's the temple and the statue of Zeus in Olympia.
Yeah, exactly. The temple here,
Um,
the statue to Agalma of the Olympian Zeus. Yes.
mm.
Um,
So in the in the sacred grove,
yeah.
At the temple in Olympia,
Yes.
there seem to be too many toes, but into, I'll say toe, hero, toe, and Olympia. Yeah, so it's in the sacred grove.
Yes, this is how it's often is that the article is repeated many times. So I'll say to hero, to and Olympia. It's just like the sacred grove in in the sacred precinct in Olympia or something like this. So this could be omitted as well. This third this third definite article, but it's just there as a sort of repetition.
Yeah. And so being the name Altus, so this sacred grove is called Altus. The sacred grove being the name being Altus.
Yeah, so this is a relative pronoun actually, this ho. So if literally it would be like for which Altis was the name.
Was the name, yeah.
If you would give it a very literal translation. Okay, and then
there were many temples.
Yeah. So in the sacred grove in Olympus, there were many temples. Yeah.
The oldest of all of these was the temple of Hera.
Exactly. Yes.
But the most beautiful and the biggest, that of Zeus.
Exactly. Very correct there. Yes. So two superlatives here of Klaus and Megistus, largest, biggest. Okay.
So and then so Pausanias, the travel guide,
yes,
said Hekalos, the most beautiful. So I said this was the most beautiful.
This is actually an adverb, like so beautifully or rightly or
that makes more sense. So Pausanias said in a beautiful way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. A good translation.
Yeah, this sentence I got a bit. So in all of Greece, Mende kai ala. Yeah, I couldn't. This bit I found quite difficult because I couldn't work out what the axia related to.
Yeah. So this one is one of, again, with a bit of a tricky syntax. This.
Yeah.
So in Greek, right, and the Hellenic in Greece, many there were many things worthy of wonder or something like this.
Okay, worthy to be.
Axia.
Yeah. Okay.
So axia just actually relates to this alla. So this is an adverb. Allos, alle, allon, other. Axia, alla axia, other, alla thaumatos axia, other things worthy of wonder. So in Greece there were many other things worthy of wonder. But then what is the most worthy of wonder, or something like this? How does it continue? Donde neon kaito agalma tu Deus. Oh, you froze. Maybe Nigel will come back in a moment. We can wait. We can recapitulate this sentence while we wait. So Pausanias, the travel guide or the travel writer, spoke in a truly beautiful way, saying,
sorry, yeah, my internet cut out there. Sorry,
yeah.
I was.
But you came back.
I've come back. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think technology's out to get me today for some reason.
So yeah, it happens sometimes.
So sorry. The last I had was axia. We were saying what the axia was.
Yeah. So if we recapitulate this sentence from the beginning, it was something like we reached there. So if we started recapitulating this, Pausanias, the travel guide or travel writer, spoke in a beautiful way, saying that in Greece there were many other things worthy of wonder, and then the sentence continues.
Okay. Okay. Donde neon kaito. But the temple and the statue of Zeus at Olympia, Panton, Ergon, of all the works, the most good looking, or most beautiful and noteworthy.
Exactly. So this this ANI is actually carried on then.
Yeah, to be, yeah.
Here, so
yeah,
it's silent there. Yeah, but very good. That's the meaning of that sentence. A rather tricky one when it comes to the syntax. Okay, did you have time for the next one as well then?
I looked at it. Yeah, there's a Todeneo. I couldn't work out what Doric. Doric.
So just like Doric, exactly, yeah.
Doric, yeah. So.
And it's also a bit tricky to know what ergasia means here. The basic meaning is work, but maybe it could be something like the style or
the construction, yeah.
Style or the production or something. The construction, maybe, yeah.
So the construction or the work was Doric. Yeah. The work of the temple.
So.
Yeah, was Doric. And then so, and then there's something about outside the colonnade.
Yeah. So basically, I think the meaning is just that on the outside there was a colonnade. So
okay, so
a peristyle or how it could be a translation with a technical term. So on the outside there was a colonnade. That's the meaning basically. Yeah. Okay. Then what do we have in the next one? Ipsos the auto and
the height. So men while and the height of this was 68 feet.
Yeah,
8 feet and 68 feet.
exactly. So 60 here, exe kontaan octo 8, 68 feet.
The breadth and the breadth 95 and 90.
5 and 90, yes.
Yeah. And the length.
Veikka's length, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. 230.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, it was 68 feet high, 95 feet wide, and 230 feet long.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Tecton, and the maker or the craftsman of this was Libyan, or was of the country was a man from the country of Libya.
Yeah, exactly. So someone is from of the country Epihorios of Libya. Yeah, exactly. This was an indefinite pronoun. This,
Yes.
if you remember,
Tis.
if it's an interrogative pronoun, this, then it has an accent. But if it doesn't have an accent, that means that it's an indefinite pronoun. So then it's someone. If it has an accent, then it's the meaning is interrogative, and then it's who or. Okay.
So in the in the temple was the statue.
Yes.
The statue was in the temple. And then
Then we have a pronoun again starting here. So, but this is not T.
So
this has an
yeah.
accent now. So that means that
So
it's interrogative.
Yeah. So if a person or if or who, because blepois is optative. So
Yeah.
so
And what person is it?
The second person singular.
Yes, exactly.
So if a person, or if you were to look,
Yeah.
or to see.
But where did you get the if from?
Well, it's not if, it's T, isn't it?
So isn't it the meaning is could be who or what? What?
That's right. Yeah, what you would see.
So we have an optative, and then we have this on. So this modal particle on together with an optative is like a potential use of the optative.
Yeah.
So maybe it could be translated something like what more beautiful or what better
yes, okay.
could you look at or behold? What more beautiful, or yeah, what more beautiful could you see? What more beautiful and semnoteron? What is semnoteron? Semnos.
Well, it's sort of stately or
yeah,
august or
stately or august or something like this, or revered or whatever, something like this. So what more beautiful and august could you behold or see
than this thing, Ekanos?
Than this statue, exactly. To Agamottus, than this statue.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a question as well because it has this here. So
yeah.
Okay.
So it was, or it is really, but I mean it is from ivory and gold.
Yes.
A most wonderful. So it's a most wonderful work of ivory and gold.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Men. So the god sits. He sits on a massive, or a very big throne.
Yeah.
upon his head a crown of olive, an olive. Yeah, an olive crown.
Yeah,
wreath, an olive wreath.
Yeah. Yes, an olive crown or breath on his
Wreath. Yeah.
Wreath is the
wreath.
pronunciation.
Yeah.
Wreath
Yeah,
wreath on his head. Okay, yes. And then
in Mende, so he holds, or he carries in his right hand, interdexia, Nike.
Yeah. The goddess,
Nike. The goddess Nike. Yeah. Kai Tauten and Tauten and she Nike that is also so Kai Tauten from ivory and gold.
Yes, exactly. So
she's also ivory and gold.
Exactly. Nike is also made of ivory and gold.
Yeah. And in the left hand of the god,
yeah,
Aneste was or is Aneste is in.
Yeah, so it's basically just st, but with the prepositional prefix n.
So in it is.
Yeah.
So in his left hand is a staff.
A staff, exactly. Yeah.
Then
we have again a relative pronoun. Fh. So in which or on which. Fh.
On which. Okay. On which an eagle is sitting.
Exactly.
On which an eagle sits.
Exactly. So the eagle sits on the staff.
Yeah.
Which is in the left hand of the god. Yeah. The colors is the beauty.
Beauty. It's neuter, so that the beauty of the statue. Denotatas so excel.
Yeah.
Exepletzen is amazed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an aorist form of ekpletto, which is amazed, by amaze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exepletzen, amazed.
Yeah. Amazed. All foreigners.
Yeah.
And then most wondrously.
Most wondrously, exactly. So it's a superlative form of an adverb.
Yeah.
So Deinos wondrously or terribly, but probably wondrously here. Yeah. So most wondrously because it's superlative. Yeah. And then we have just one more sentence.
Yeah. So
which again was a bit tricky because of the syntax here.
Yeah. So
the subject, where is the subject if you begin with that one?
The statue.
Yeah, here. Galma. Actually, this is not the subject. This is
no,
it's a part of the accusative object here. So the subject is epigramma.
Epigramma, yeah. So so that's an inscription. So
yeah.
there is an inscription on
this is a rather tricky one because this is like if you begin here with this epigramma, so there epigramma estin, as you said, there is an inscription as martyrian tode. So for the verification or for to prove
Okay, to
to
prove.
prove this would be, so there is an inscription to prove this. And what is it to prove? Fediandeton ergasamenon tuo galma ei näin.
So
Yeah.
The statue was made by Phidia. Well, the statue was the work of Phidia. It's
exactly, yeah. Fediandeton ergasamenon. So it's ergasamenon is actually a participle form here.
Yes.
Ergazomai, aorist participle. But the meaning is like Fedian was the one who had done the statue.
Yeah.
Inscription there is to prove this, which
is on the base.
On the base.
Yeah. And then I didn't try and translate that.
It's just Fedias. Here's Fedias, the name of Fedias. Then we had Harmidu, son of Harmides. Harmidu, or Harmidos, son of Harmidos. Sorry. So Fedias Harmidu, son of Harmidu, and it's here also Hyos. So Fedias, son of Harmidu, Athenaios, the Athenian, and then we have me, Poiese, did. So Fedias, son of Harmidos, the Athenian, made me. So that's inscribed on this base of the statue. So this is often how the maker of the statues actually wrote their own signature there, as if the statue or the vase or whatever would speak for itself. I was done by, this person or that person. So Fedias me poiese, and this, of course, there's an poiese. There's lacking an augment there. It should be epoiese because it's an aorist indicative. But that's how it often is in inscriptions, that the augments are lacking. And it can also, of course, be me poiese. So it has been. You can think that it has been elided away. So me ends in an vocal. Me, but anyway, I'll also write down a translation. So if there's something that you wonder about, or something like in the text that wasn't completely clear, hopefully it will be. But great work. I mean, you translated basically the whole chapter. It wasn't a short one either. So good.
Okay.
Thanks for today.
Thank you, and see you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.